vision and pay me. It's never this way. We indigenous, maybe we winning this crazy. Opportunity, your opportunity, your opportunity, your opportunity. This your opportunity, your opportunity.
Welcome to EDI on the Street, where we try to make sense of all things EDI in supply chain. Here at GraceBlood, we spend our days in the trenches, and we translate that complicated, sometimes frankly bizarre world of electronic data interchange into knowledge you can actually use.
Yeah, we've seen so many of these projects, and you start to see the patterns. You see what makes them work and what makes them fail.
And so often, it really does come down to this one single persistent myth.
The myth of standard EDI.
Exactly. You hear it all the time. A new client comes to us and says, we just need a standard 850.
The purchase order.
Or just standard 856, the advanced ship notice.
The detailed packing list, yeah.
Right. And they approach it assuming you can just pull some textbook map off the shelf. But the very second you connect to a real trading partner, that whole idea it falls apart.
It shatters. And that's what we want to talk about today. We're unpacking what it means to find an EDI partner who can actually handle the weird stuff.
The non-standard reality of integration.
Because the simple truth is, standard is a theory. It's an idea. Almost every single integration out there has non-standard elements. And our mission today is really to show you why planning for that customization isn't just a good idea. It's the only way forward.
Okay, so let's start with a definition, because this is where that fantasy of standard EDI really meets reality. What does non-standard actually mean when we're talking about X12?
It's a great question, because non-standard does not mean wrong. It doesn't mean broken. It just means customized.
Oh.
Or maybe a better word is adapted. It's adapted to a very specific business process.
So it's not an error, it's an intention.
Exactly. X12, that's the standards body, they provide this huge rulebook. But inside that rulebook, there are literally hundreds of optional segments, different qualifiers, different ways to implement the rules.
So the problem isn't the document standard itself, it's how each company interprets it.
Precisely. And these variations exist for real practical reasons. I mean, maybe your ERP system has a very specific limitation and needs an internal data field that the X12 spec just never thought of.
We see that all the time.
All the time. Or maybe your biggest trading partner has, let's say, a creative interpretation of the spec, and they demand a field be mandatory, even though the official spec says it's optional.
This gets to that core idea you mentioned before we started, EDI reality versus EDI fantasy.
It's everything.
Right.
If you hire a provider who only builds for the fantasy, for that perfect textbook scenario, your project is doomed. It will fail the second the data gets even a little bit weird.
And that failure happens because the real world runs on custom business rules, right? Unique data qualifiers, custom segments that might only exist between you and one other partner.
And if your provider has locked you into some rigid, static framework, you're basically being asked to change your entire business operation just to fit their EDI tool.
And that's never going to work.
It never, ever works.
So this raises a big question. Why is this getting more common? I mean, we're in the age of cloud computing, powerful APIs. You'd think technology would be making things cleaner, more standardized, but you're arguing the opposite.
It feels counterintuitive, but modern systems dramatically increase the surface area for complexity. Just think about how a business operates today versus, say, 20 years ago.
Way fewer silos, more interconnected systems.
Exactly. But every single one of those connections is a potential point of friction. I mean, companies aren't just shipping from one warehouse anymore. They have multiple fulfillment methods, drop shipping, 3PLs, direct-to-consumer.
They're selling across, what, dozens of channels?
Dozens of channels. And each one requires a slightly different data format or workflow. And then you have the rise of hybrid models. This is huge right now. You might get a 850 purchase order, but the shipment confirmation has to be sent as a REST API call in a totally different format.
So you're not just mapping EDI to an ERP. You're mapping EA through an ERP out to an API, and maybe it's going through a 3PL's custom portal along the way. That's a really complex chain.
It is. And every link in that chain, every 3PL, every sales channel, every unique customer workflow, introduces a new requirement that almost certainly isn't in the base X12 spec.
And then you have the trading partners themselves, the big retailers. They change the rules on a whim.
Well, they do. They'll adjust their ASN structure, the 856, and give you, a week's notice? And they just expect you to adapt instantly.
And if you can't, if your system freezes up, that's when the real damage starts, the financial damage.
That's the critical link right there. If your provider only knows standard EDI, they can't adapt to that sudden change. And you, their client, immediately start getting hit with financial penalties.
Let's really dig into that pain, the tangible, costly results of picking a provider who only does textbook implementations. Where does it hurt a company most?
The failures feel operational, but the cost is direct and it's immediate. The first and maybe the worst pain point is the silent failure.
Explain that, because that term is, it's terrifying. Silent failures are insidious.
They are. So an order comes in, the EDI file itself is technically valid, according to the big X12 rulebook, but because the mapping is missing one specific non-standard field that your ERP absolutely requires.
I see where this is going.
The order doesn't throw an error. It doesn't bounce back. It just never imports. It vanishes.
Yeah.
It disappears into the ether, and you have no idea there's a problem until an angry customer calls 3 days later asking where their shipment is.
That is a complete breakdown of trust, and it kills your fulfillment velocity.
Absolutely. Beyond that, we see constant ASN issues. The shipment notifications, they don't match the cartons or the items because the provider couldn't handle a custom data qualifier. This is a compliance killer.
And that leads directly to chargebacks.
The chargebacks start piling up immediately.
Anyone listening who deals with major retailers knows how brutal those penalties can be. I mean, a single non-compliant shipment can cost you hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars in fees.
Not to mention the hours your staff wastes trying to track it all down and fix it manually. It's a nightmare. And the worst part is the post-go-live shock.
That it worked in testing problem.
Exactly. Yeah. A standard-only provider can usually get the test files to work because test files are almost always perfectly clean and, well, standard. But then you go live and the real messy data starts to flow.
All the exceptions, all the unique scenarios.
All of it. And that's when the system just collapses because they built a solution based on a fantasy spec, not on the reality of your actual data flow.
I think the best way to really hammer this home is with stories. Let's get into a few real-world case studies where success was all about adapting to that non-standard reality.
Okay, let's start with a classic one, the hidden ERP field. This really highlights why you need deep knowledge of a client's internal systems, not just the EDI specs.
Okay.
So we had a client, their ERP, a big high-volume one. It required a mandatory internal location code. This was not a standard field. It wasn't in the spec, but their ERP had to have it.
And where did this code need to go?
It had to be placed deep inside a specific REF segment, that's a reference identification segment, using a totally unique internal qualifier. If that little code was missing, the ERP's internal logic just decided, this order's incomplete, and it would just fail to process it.
And crucially, it wouldn't send an error message back.
It would not notify the EDI system at all. The order just vanished internally.
So the EDI provider had to understand not just the retailer's mapping guide, but the deep internal logic of the client's specific ERP.
That's the whole point. A standard provider would have looked at the spec, seen that REF segment was technically optional, and just skipped it. But because our team at GraceBlood, we asked these deep discovery questions, we found that missing logic. We engineered the map to make sure that hidden code was always generated and put in the right place. That one custom rule saved hundreds of orders from disappearing every single week.
Wow. Okay, let's switch to trading partner behavior. Tell us about the famous grocery retailer with the creative ASNs.
Yes, this is a favorite story of mine. It perfectly illustrates the reality of dealing with the giants in any market. This major grocery retailer, they sent ASNs, the 856s, with highly customized and, to be honest, just plain non-standard structures.
What were they doing?
They were sending what we call reversed HL loops.
Okay, for our listeners, what's an HL loop and why is reversing it a problem?
So in an 856, the HL loop is the hierarchy. It's the structure. It dictates the order of how the shipment is grouped. Shipment level, then order level, then carton, then item. It's like a nested table of contents for the shipment.
And it has to be in that order.
It's supposed to be. Standard EDI parsers expect that hierarchy. This retailer was reversing the order of some loops. They were skipping pack levels entirely. They were effectively putting the item details before the carton they were inside of.
Which would just completely confuse any standard receiving system. But you can't exactly call them up and tell them they're wrong.
You cannot tell a billion-dollar retailer their EDI is wrong. You adapt or you lose the business. A provider who just insists on standard X12 validation would have rejected every single one of those ASNs. They would have shut down their client's supply chain.
So what does the non-standard ready provider do?
They say, okay, this is weird, but we've seen weird before. We write the custom logic to understand their unique interpretation and map it back into a clean structure that your ERP can actually use.
And more companies are dealing with blending these technologies, which brings us to the hybrid workflow case.
This is becoming the norm, really. We had a client who was getting traditional EDI purchase orders, that was the inbound, but their very modern cloud-based retail partner required them to send all inventory updates and shipment confirmations through a modern API.
Using what, a JSON format?
Specifically a JSON payload. So you have this 40-year-old standardized transaction set that needs to talk perfectly with a cutting-edge web service format.
That requires knowing both worlds deeply.
You have to. The integration partner has to be able to take that core data from the EDI 856, apply all the custom business rules, and then transform that clean, validated data into the exact JSON payload the retailer's API is expecting. It's bridging two completely different technical worlds.
And that's a workflow you will not find in any X12 spec.
Not a chance. But it's absolutely essential for modern business.
Okay, so let's make this actionable for our listeners who might be vetting partners right now. If standard is a fantasy and non-standard is the reality, what's the checklist? What do they need to look for to make sure a partner is ready for this complexity?
You have to confirm they're built for flexibility, not rigidity. I'd say there's 7 key things to look for.
Let's hear them.
First, they have to ask detailed discovery questions that go way beyond just reading the spec. They need to be asking about your internal processes, your custom fields. Second, they need to know your specific ERP family. And I mean really know it. Its quirks, its required fields, its limitations.
So not just, oh yeah, we've integrated with SAP before, but more like, we know that specific version of SAP requires this particular segment to be populated in this way.
Exactly that level of detail. Third, they must have integrated with your critical trading partners before, and not just their standard template, but their weird custom rules.
Okay, what's number 4?
Fourth, they have to show you how they can automate complex cross-references and business rules. This is where you eliminate all that manual cleanup.
5th is probably about formats.
Yep. Fifth, they must be comfortable with all formats. Flat files, APIs, CSVs, vendor portals, not just X12. Hybrid readiness is non-negotiable today.
Number 6.
6, they document everything, clearly, especially the custom logic and the non-standard variations they built just for you.
And the last one.
And finally, and this is the most important one, they have to treat non-standard variations as normal, not as unusual, expensive exceptions. It's just part of the job.
That last point feels like a huge mindset shift. If a provider says to you up front, oh, everything we do is standard, that's actually a massive red flag.
It's the biggest red flag there is. They're telling you that you will have to compromise your business to fit their tool, and that guarantees failure when real data starts flowing.
So let's arm our listeners. Let's give them an interview guide. What are the essential questions they should ask a potential provider to really test this non-standard readiness?
You've got to push them past the sales pitch. Ask them directly. What are the 3 most non-standard integrations you have handled in the last 6 months, and how did you solve them? Make them give you real case studies.
Good one. What else?
Then ask, how do you support hybrid EDI and API workflows, specifically for an order-to-shipment confirmation cycle? See if they can actually explain the technology.
But what about cross-references? That's always a source of so much pain.
Oh, you have to hit that hard. Ask them, how do you manage complex cross-references between our internal part numbers and our partners' SKUs? Is that fully automated, or is it a manual process?
Test their agility, too.
Absolutely. What is your process when a huge trading partner changes their requirements with only a week's notice? What's your expected turnaround time for that custom fix?
And I've got one, the ultimate litmus test. Ask them, can you walk us through how you handled a highly non-standard advanced ship notice? Detail the custom logic you had to build.
That's the one. Their response to that, the confidence, the level of detail, that will tell you everything you need to know about their real-world experience.
So looking ahead 5 years from now, is the supply chain getting more standard, or should we all just brace for more complexity?
Everything, and I mean every indicator, points toward greater complexity. More systems, more sales channels, more intricate automation needs. It just creates more opportunities for data flows to become unique and customized.
So the future is less standard, not more.
Much less standard. We're going to see more hybrid models, more custom business rules, and way less reliance on one-size-fits-all specs.
So the real value then isn't finding a standard provider, it's finding a partner who is completely prepared for the reality of customization.
Absolutely. The standard is a fantasy. Flexibility is the only reality that actually works and keeps you compliant.
And that flexibility is your most valuable asset in this game, because when things inevitably get messy, and trust me, they will,
They always do.
you want a partner who says, oh yeah, we've seen this exact problem before. We know the weird qualifier your ERP needs. We already built that logic in.
Not the fatal response. Sorry, that's not in the X12 spec, so we can't process it. That right there is the difference between scaling your business and watching your chargebacks explode.
Well, thank you for joining us on EDI on the Street. We really hope this look into non-standard reality helps you vet your next integration partner with a lot more confidence.
Until next time, stay connected, stay informed, and most importantly, stay flexible.
Maybe indigenous, maybe we winning this crazy. Your opportunity, your opportunity, your opportunity, this your opportunity, your opportunity.